Is it harder to raise $25 million to make a film, or is it harder to raise $1 or $2 million for a smaller film?
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
The answer is easy. It's harder to raise $1 million than $25 million. I'm just saying there's a prejudice against films under $1 million.
The San Francisco Bayview newspaper and BlockReportRadio.com present the third annual Black Media Appreciation Night on Saturday, September 12th at the African American Art and Culture Complex at 762 Fulton Street in San Francisco. Hosted by Katera and Kali O'Ray, with performances by M1 of Dead Press and Sista Imena, plus more unannounced surprise guests. Mark your calendar, Saturday, September 12th at the AAACC, 762 Fulton Street, San Francisco. Go to sfbayview.com for more info.
Yes, Lord! Smooth in the suede on the inside. Candy paint, candy paint. I ain't gotta tell you what the rims look like. Look, I'm gripping wood like a glove. She asked me, can a friend ride? Kelly wanna have a drink, and Shiny wanna pop pills all night. Don't be flipped up with my tape deck. You gon' listen to this Marvin, you gon' listen to this Bloodstone. Oh, y'all niggas like that Barry White? Well, I don't really fit with that right there. That can make a nigga act up right there. But go and get your rocks off, boo. It's more for you. Yes, I'm far from a pimp, but I'm close to you. We're looking with an old soul, twice removed. My pops used to work up on the fighter jets. Maybe that's the reason I be stupid. Yes, now who the fuck call me a player? I ain't one of these young niggas out here sweating for a pay stub. I'm a coach. I teach these bitches how to lay up. Now most of y'all can't do this shit, but all my chicks cook grits. I don't spliff at the same damn time. You ain't lived long enough to have this fine. Now, if you don't mind, if I call you a shit, it's cause you my shit. And as long as no one else calls you a shit, then it won't be no problems. Now, if I call you a trick, it's cause you pay rent. And as long as you don't call up the 6, then it won't be no problems. So walk with me now. She with it, she with it. Keep it 300, I ain't even gotta hit it. She with it, she with it. All she wanna do is watch a real nigga win. Yeah. She with it, she with it. Look me in my eyes, there'll be no simping. She with it, she with it. I got a whole lot of women, all of them with it. Yes, Lord! My mama said don't trust these hoes, boy, be about your loot. True story. Now if my mama told me that, why the fuck would I listen to you? You'll never go broke chasing riches, but you might go broke chasing every little snake asshole with a tongue piercing. Now, if I call you a shit, it's cause you my shit. And as long as no one else call you a shit, then it won't be no problems. Now, if I call you a trick, it's cause you pay rent. And as long as you don't call every 6, then it won't be no problems. Walk with me now. She with it, she with it. Keep it 300, I ain't even gotta hit it. She with it, she with it. All she wanna do is watch a real nigga. Yeah. She with it, she with it. Look me in the face, there'll be no simping. She with it, she with it. I got a whole lot of women, all of them with it. Yes, Lord. Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, the 90s were a completely different age back then. You could sell CDs, you could do what you wanted.
You are listening to another edition of Block Report Radio with the People's Minister of Information, JR. Today our honored guest is filmmaker accomplished filmmaker Stanley Nelson. He has a new film called Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution. How are you, Mr. Stanley Nelson?
I'm doing great,
Can you tell the people a little bit about how you got into filmmaking?
Yeah, I was bouncing around college. This is in the early, mid-'70s. And I took a film class and really liked it and said, let me try making films. And it was at a time where, for the first time, black people were getting behind the camera. So I just kind of fell into it and really liked it and stuck with it.
Definitely. So what do you hope that people get out of your film?
Well, I think that it's a new telling of the story. I don't think that there's been a real, major telling of the Black Panther story. So there's been films that the Panthers kind of figure in, documentary films. There's been films about individual Panthers or individual events. But, there's never been a film about this kind of rise and fall of the Black Panther Party. So, I think that, you see in the film that the Panthers are very, very different from what we've come down to believe in history, or so many people have come down to believe, about the Panthers in history. You see very clearly that the Panthers had, huge support from the black community, from the white community, Latino, Asian, all were supporters of the Black Panther Party. You see, Huey Newton or Eldridge Cleaver, Bobby Seale speaking, and the audience is 90% white, and that's not the way that we usually think about the Panthers. So I think that's one thing. I think also it's very clear if you see the film how J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI really systematically went after the Panthers and destroyed the Panthers, and I think that's really important. But I guess, if there's one thing I'd like people to kind of take away, is that these were young people. These were very young people who kind of, came out of nowhere and just said, we can make a movement. We can change things. We can do this. And I think that's really important, for young people, especially at this time. It seems like we're at the beginnings of a new movement. And I want young people to see this, and hopefully it'll strengthen their resolve to make change in this country.
The Black Panthers. Black Panthers. The Black Panther Party.
Black Panther movement.
The Black Panthers were absolutely unique.
Being black in America meant that you didn't walk down the street with the same sense of safety and the sense of privilege as a white person. Attack dogs, fire hoses.
Police jump on you, beat you up, put the gun at your head. This is what we were going through on a daily basis.
We stand on the eve of a black revolution, brothers.
Now we have voices within the community that we're not going to continue to turn the other cheek.
The Second Amendment guarantees the citizen a right to bear arms on public property.
We're going to carry our guns and we're going to follow the police. We're going to maintain a legal distance, ready to throw down if necessary.
Anyone who would approve of this kind of demonstration must be out of their mind.
God get me some. That's what I need.
These racist Gestapo pigs have to stop brutalizing our community or we're going to drive them out.
The majority of the rank and file are women.
We tried to change some of the clear gender roles. Women had guns and men cooked breakfast for children.
The way we walk and talk and dress, we were a phenomenon.
The Black Panthers really understood the media. They used us to their advantage.
Chairman of the Black Panther Party, and here he is. They tapped the phone. The phone is probably hooked up to the White House.
You read the Black Panther Party newspaper?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Because I'm black and I'm proud.
The FBI wanted to destroy the Panthers.
How about justice? Justice is incidental to law and order.
This was all-out attack on the Black Panther Party. Every significant office is going to be raided, bombed, shot, mass arrests.
They were coming to kill us.
When the 15-minute gun battle was over, 2 Black Panthers were dead.
This was obviously a political assassination.
It was like a slaughterhouse.
were doing fundraisers at places like Jane Fonda's townhouse so that we could raise money for the Legal Defense Fund.
There were 156 not guilty verdicts. That's astonishing.
We don't hate nobody because of their color. We hate oppression.
We refer to ourselves as the Vanguard. We wanted the entire community to follow.
I feel free. I feel absolutely free. You understand? That's what I feel.
Well, let me ask you this question just straight up. Do you think that you told the whole story of the Black Panther Party? I mean, there was 48 different chapters and sections, and there was over 5,000 members. Do you feel like you told the story of the Black Panther Party, or do you feel like...
I feel like I told the story as best you can in 2 hours.
I agree with that.
Best I can in 2 hours. You know, I mean, no, there's no way, you know, you can tell the whole story of the Black Panthers, you know, in a couple of hours. I mean, look, there's no way you can, you know, you could do a mini-series on the Black Panthers, you know, have 2 hours for 2 weeks. It still wouldn't tell the whole story. There's still stuff that you have to leave, you know, take out or leave in. I mean, but that's the dilemma of making a film or doing any kind of media about anything. One of the things that is interesting about making a film, especially, is that, you know, you don't have the luxury of saying, you know, I'm going to add, you know, another chapter, or I'm going to add a couple more pages. Usually you've got a time limit. You know, this is how long this film is supposed to be, and within that time limit, you know, I can either tell this story or I can tell that story. I cannot tell every single story that I want to tell. So that is just the reality of filmmaking. You know, one of the things that J. Edgar Hoover wanted to do, and that he says very clearly in his memos, you know, is destroy the reputation of the Panthers and to turn the community and people against the Panthers. And I think in some ways, you know, he was successful in doing that. You know, we think about, so many people think about so negatively about the Panthers, but, you know, at that time, that's not how they were seen. So I don't know why, you know, it should come down in history any different. So I think it's really important for us to show, you know, there's a statement by Julian Bond in the film, you know, in support of the Panthers. You know, we wanted to make sure that you got an understanding of how the Panthers were thought of back then. Because that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about how the Panthers were thought of, you know, in the 90s or the 2000s. We're talking about how the Panthers were thought about in the 60s and the early 70s when they were, you know, at their heyday.
Well, I thought you also got informant. You got some footage of William O'Neill and black police officers. That was very interesting. So I salute you on that, man. I think that the film, I give it 2 thumbs up. I encourage as many people as possible to go see the film, man. And, you know, we can't wait until you come to Oakland. Hopefully.
You know, I lived out in Oakland from 2006, 2009, something like that. Yeah, so, you know, I mean, I lived there. I know Oakland. I loved it.
You know a little bit about the town, you know?
I loved it. You know, my brother still lives in Berkeley. My brother-in-law lives in Oakland. So, you know, I mean, hey. Okay. So we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to opening in Oakland and you know, seeing all the folks. So thank you so much.
No doubt.
You were just listening to the voice of Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution filmmaker, Stanley Nelson, as he talked about his new documentary that opens in October. I am the People's Minister of Information, J.R. Valray, signing off for BlockReportRadio.com. Until next time, we out.
You go to high school in Inglewood. You think you're gonna get into Harvard?
I'm from a poor, crime-filled neighborhood, raised by a single mother, don't know my dad, blah, blah. It's cliche.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Malcolm Adekambi. I'm a straight-A student with nearly perfect SAT scores.
You probably got like one of them photogenic brains.
You mean photographic memory?
What'd I just say?
I mean, yeah, you said it. Yeah, reiterating. I play in a punk band with my friends, and I'm a 90s hip-hop geek.
You gonna say something or just stare at me?
A bad day for most geeks would be being the butt of jokes.
Some brother really needs to invent an app like Waze to avoid all these hood traps.
It is time we started expanding our horizons.
We're not going to a drug dealer's birthday party. But when you live in the bottoms...
Well, I'll go if you go.
Okay!
bad day could look like this. We were dancing, man.
If I let this slide, we got what they call a slippery slope. You know what a slippery slope is? Do it got anything to do with skiing? Shut your ass down.
Don't make fly.
Do you have what I left in the backpack?
Did he actually say I'll kill you and your friends if you don't get rid of these drugs, or just you? Don't act like you weren't curious too.
Hey, all we gotta do is find the white people, go to Coachella, Lollapalooza.
We don't know nothing about drugs. You do. We need to know if you're gonna help us. Okay. Nobody's gonna suspect a thing. We're just geeks doing what geeks do.
I don't want to go to jail. I want to go to college.
Ah, slippery slope.
Exactly.
You play with me, my little boy from the hood?
Hey, wait. I am the authority in keeping a proper brother to hoe ratio. So unless you got some boobies.
What? Like boys don't cry. Remember we were saying that?
I remember that.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Malcolm Adekambi. Can you dig it?
You can call me N-word, and I can't say it.
Technically, he shouldn't be able to say the word. Why can he use it?
Because I'm 14% African. Ancestry.com.
Look, just say the damn word. You're my...
It was a reflex.
On the line, we have Miss Noel Schwerin, who is the filmmaker of In an Ideal World. How are you, Noel?
I'm fine. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Can you tell the people a little bit about your film, In an Ideal World? What is it about?
Well, it's about three men who are confronting the possibility and the obstacles to change over 7 years in Soledad Prison, and it's at a kind of a critical moment in that transformation.
Can you talk about the ethnicities of the men and why that is important in a prison setting?
Sure. The three men are a black man, a white man, and the warden, and they've all spent their entire adult lives living or working in prison. The reason that I was very interested in focusing on, well, as soon as I walked into prison, it was very clear that there is an unapologetic use of power, and in prison, that gets organized and maintained along racial lines. And many people will say, well, prison is its own universe. I found it to be just a distilled, heightened version of what happens outside, so that the disproportionate number of people of color behind bars is symptomatic of much larger problems. So you can't talk about prison without talking about race. And a lot of the story, both the obstacles they had to overcome and the community they had to build, had to do with crossing racial barriers.
Well, you also talk about the courts. Can you talk about how the courts play a part in your film?
On a very fundamental level, this is a civil rights story. California has, for close to 50 years, its official policy has been to segregate inmates in their cell, in their housing. And that has, created and contributed to a culture of embedded racism and racial ordering and hierarchies, which, like many institutions in the United States, is historic, embedded, deeply entrenched. And in prison, it's very obvious. So what happened in 2005, the U.S. Supreme Court said it was a settlement with the Department of Corrections saying you really can't do this anymore. And it was, the department dragged its feet for a long time, and during the time I was there, over the 7 years I was there was increasing pressure to implement that cell desegregation. So that case was one of many cases confronting the California Department of Corrections. But in many ways it was the opportunity in the film to explore the racial desegregation. The other thing is that for a general audience, I think many people have found it shocking that, in 2015 and when I started in 2006, that we had an official policy of segregation. I mean, we assumed through the civil rights struggles and that separate is not equal, but we had official policy here in California, and it's as much as it may not be official policy still, it is de facto policy. So people find that shocking, and it's important, I think, for viewers to understand that this is their story too. This is not, just these three men, but this is a state system. These are our tax dollars. This is policy.
One thing that I thought was very interesting about your film is that the film itself advocated against segregation. But the people in the film, the warden, as well as the black and the white inmate, did not think it was a good idea. Can you talk about the complexity of the issue?
Well, I think that really gets to the core of the paradox and dilemma in entrenched historic discrimination and segregation, because a systemic, organizationally structured, segregationist, discriminatory policy becomes, people find a way to make that safer for themselves.
You put me in a fish tank with other fish, and the biggest fish is going to win. I'm going to carve out my spot. I'm going to make my place.
You can't just put any kind of fish in a tank. You have to be careful of what kind of fish you put in there. We're in an environment that is negative at its core and thrives on violence.
I worry that I will not have enough time between now and the time that I retire to do everything that I want to do here.
Starting on the third tier, and we're pulling out all of Northern Hispanics, and then we're going to double back and do the white inmates. And then after we clear out all the white inmates, we'll do the black inmates. Then we'll do all the guys that are in the general population that we don't have to tough up.
You tell me why you're swinging your arms?
Yes, sir. I was telling the black inmates to get back. You can come on the yard and be like, well, I'm not in any gang, but you're still black.
For us, it's power. The courts have taken away our freedom. The administration takes away our movement. So what do? We strike back amongst ourselves. Who will be dominant over ourselves?
Big man, were you able to... For so many years, we have allowed de facto segregation, and we have participated in that segregation.
All right, he might not have been a racist prior to prison, but when they come to prison, they make you a racist. So they might not feel that in their heart, but they're gonna have to go with it.
So what do I do? And they had an incredible principal who said in the room, okay, school rules don't apply here. You ask him anything you want to ask. Nothing leaves these rooms. And the kinds of questions that we got from these kids, like, what do I do when this guy approaches me like this? And John and Sam can respond to that. They've got credibility. They've been there. So that was one, that was spine-tingling. That made me really want to bring it more into schools. And I kept hearing from all sorts of people who work with youth, teachers, social workers, even the DA of the Bronx said, you need to get it into middle schools. So I'm working on that. Then I've shown it to people who work in the field, the John Jay School of Criminal Justice, particularly for their reentry and social work program. And all these people have not been inside. I've shown it to attorneys that defend inmates, and they've been floored by the kind of vulnerability that they see in the film, the kind of issues that, as even representing these men, they don't get to because they're seen as, you know, the law, even if it's the law on their side. So I think that there is and I've also, you know, there have been the new warden at Soledad has seen it and liked it very much. And, you know, I'm hoping to take it into Soledad and have everybody there see it. And I've had correctional staff say, thank you for not totally marginalizing us. I mean, this is a complicated picture. So I think it's a kind of film that if you get all those people in a room together, have a real community screening, people don't usually see each other's point of view, I think there's a possibility that this film can open things up for a conversation that doesn't usually happen. So that, to me, that's the power of it. It's not a policy film. It's not making recommendations. I'm not a criminal justice expert, but I believe that the people who live and work there, just as you sort of referred to before, they have expertise that we need to hear.
How did you feel when In an Ideal World was selected to be in the San Francisco Black Film Festival this year?
Well, I was really thrilled. I was thrilled because, you know, the film festival world, I have learned with some chagrin, is a very kind of small, self-congratulatory community. And there's a lot of talk about outreach and impact, and, you know, they did a study, the Ford Foundation did a study which included looking at another prison film, a very good prison film, The House I Live In, which had millions of dollars for outreach and very big names attached to it and had huge publicity. And this main study that they did showed, well, actually, it had a huge impact on the film community and on the sort of press that's around the independent film, and had starkly diminishing impact outside of that. So even though Eugene Jarecki was like, I want this to impact sentencing, study showed that it was really not having the impact there. It was having quite a public impact. Now that is hard to measure in terms of whether that changes people's opinions, and that's important. But in terms of impact in the communities affected and impact in the communities that have power to change, marginal impact. So I love that you guys are out there. I mean, it's a small organization, but it is dedicated. And when I said at every festival, I want to make sure that there are free tickets available for anybody who's been impacted by incarceration. And the festival was like, oh, of course. You know, let's make that happen right away. Now, that's not the response I get always. So,
brought to you by the Traveling Film Circus.
You don't even write your own ish. Yes, I do. I got bars. Bars, nigga. Your ghostwriter got bars. At least I can afford a ghostwriter. Okay, well, Nikki about to help me with this diss on to you. No, I'm not. Oh, you better not. It's on now.
The Drake gets his best ghostwriters together and work on a new diss song.
Boy Wonder, Quentin Miller, you know what to do. Daylight, your job is to come up with all the hardest bars you can think of. And where you going? I'm going out to get a smoothie. What? You want a smoothie?